We're coming in with my last Octopath video for a while. Like I said earlier this week, with Octopath Traveler Zero's demo just totally exciting and energizing me, I thought I would do some Octopath videos, celebrate the series, talk about how much I love the game, and do my very own Nick B thing, and also power rank some characters. We already did Octopath Traveler 1, and now we're coming in with Octopath Traveler 2. Let's jump right in. I only have 3 tiers here because I believe that the character balance in this game is reasonably good. Yes, I certainly think that there are some characters who are broadly stronger than others. I think it is true that just like in Octopath 1, the strength of a character kind of changes throughout the game, where some characters are much stronger earlier, while others are stronger later, and yet others, the ones who I think will sit highest on this list, are strong throughout. Just like in Octopath 1, I'm going to slate this such that if a character's strong late game, but not so much early game, that's going to weight more in their favor than vice versa. Alright, I don't think we need to talk about the ranking criteria too much more. Coming in at 8th place, and the bottom of my B tier, for me, it's Osvald. I know, 2 tier lists in a row where the scholar gets the shaft. I swear, it's nothing biased on my part. I love him and Cyrus both immensely as characters. I think they're fantastic. And I gotta say that Osvald's strengths, I think, are similar to Cyrus, in that in the early game, he's quite an area of effect targeting elemental powerhouse. I would say his problems, by comparison to Cyrus, though, are actually a little bit different. Where the problem in the first game was that the sorcerer was just a strict and pure upgrade to the scholar, the problem in this game is actually more that the scholar, or Osvald, to reach his full potential requires, in my opinion, much more setup than other very heavy hitters like Hikari, who can just wreck enemies every turn without setup. And worse yet, there is another character who is going to be appearing much higher on this list, who I think is a better scholar and is served better through elemental setup through some of the options he ends up getting. We'll talk about that later. So yeah, Osvald's a high damage dealing character, and there are several characters on this list. I would probably say at least Hikari, Temenos, and Ochette, who can do more damage than him, and arguably Throné too, with considerably less setup, and these things just really hurt. You mix this with the fact that he otherwise doesn't have any particularly great utility. Again, that Scholar Divine skill is really good in some circumstances, so I respect that, but overall, there are other people that can do what he wants to do a lot better and with a lot less setup. So for me, Osvald is in last place and the bottom of our B tier. We only have one other B tier character, and that is going to be my 7th place pick in Agnea. Agnea has some problems, but first let's talk about her strengths. I will say, just like in the first game, Seal Teach's Seduction is a pretty good divine skill. There are certain circumstances where you want to cast that on a character to just hit everything, like Hikari, and for that, it's really good. And in addition, my personal favorite ability of Agnea's, and this ability actually single-handedly had me using her a decent amount in the mid-game, is Windy Refrain. You hit all the enemies for wind damage, and then you have a rider where it moves everybody in your party to the top of the turn order in the following turn. To me, this is basically like leg hold trap on crack, because it's better against groups of enemies, right? Since it'll just put your party ahead of all of them. And in addition, you're hitting them for chip wind damage at the same time. It's actually a really good skill throughout the entire game and just fantastic utility. And I would say by far her biggest standout. I would say Agnea's biggest problem is that the dancer is designed to be a support class, but getting buffs in this game, there's so many ways to get buffs. There's Castii's Concoct, which has different buffing options. There's, say, Throné's Talent, which just fully buffs your entire party's, I think, speed, physical attack, and elemental attack at the start of battle for a few turns if it's night. And that just happens turn economy and SP free. So, and then there's other characters, right? Like Ochette has a really powerful self buff. There's self buffs all over the place in this game. And so a character who's designed to do buffing, really, she's competing with other stuff that's happening basically passively. That's not a good look. Ruinous Kick is an okay ability, right? You can break any shield, but there are so many characters in this game who are also just absurd shield breakers. Temenos, Ochette, Hikari, while doing substantially more damage than Agnea basically possibly could. Yeah, it's the way I felt with Agnea is bar Windy Refrain, which I think is really an outstanding ability. Basically anything she would want to do, there are other people who I think can do it better. And so, yeah, I don't know what else to say. I don't think she's the best character. I think she's roundly outclassed and closes out our B tier. Coming in at 6th place and the bottom of our A tier, and this one might be a bit of a riot. And to be honest with you, this is the character that was the hardest for me to rank because I didn't use this character as much as I might have. I'm talking about Ochette. Now here's the thing, I'm not gonna mince words. I find monster and beast and pet management to be a pain in the ass, so I don't do it. That said, I did dabble with it a little bit, and I have to say that if you are willing to really work with Ochette and build her roster of monsters, Provoke Beasts is just a completely absurd ability, and I respect its power. And that's not the end of Ochette's virtues. Like Hikari, she is absurdly naturally strong with her physical attack power, and the Hunter as a base class has some of the better skills in this game, in my opinion. Leghold Trap is always a good debuff. Yes, I just said Windy Refrain is better, but I think that the amount of other things Ochette can do over Agnea in terms of the offensive and break pressure more than makes up for that. So Leghold Trap is really good. Abating Orb is circumstantially very good for removing an enemy's buffs. Ochette is an outstanding bow weakness breaker with a multi-hit attack skill in her kit for that, and Indomitable Beast is an outstanding self buff. So yeah, Ochette has all sorts of stuff going for her. Provoke Beast is a very, very, very strong ability, and I do think it's possible that if I was more patient with her, I might have ranked her higher, but I thought Hikari was so damn good and fills, I think, quite a similar role to her, that for these reasons, I put her at the bottom of A tier. But if you got more mileage out of her, I could totally see how. I just didn't have the patience to deal with all the monster capturing. Coming in at the top of A tier for me is Throné. To be honest with you, I don't think the Thief is a great base kit in this game. I think it was a bit better in Octopath 1 than it is in 2, but you know something? I do think that Shackle Foe and Corrode Armor are always respectable debuffs and something I like having in the pocket. What I like much more about Throné are actually her talent and latent power. Like I said, if you do night fighting, which in Octopath 2, I frankly primarily did because of her and Temenos, you just start the fight off with several turns of attack, elemental attack, and speed buff. Yeah, action economy free buffs for the entire party. Yes, please. It's really good. And her latent power is, in my opinion, one of the, if not the best in the entire game. She just gets 2 back-to-back turns right off the rip when she uses that latent power. This is absurdly good, and for a lot of reasons you might not think of. Yes, it might be what you need to just finish off an enemy's shields, and sometimes that's exactly what you want, but with a little bit of setup, especially with like the Apothecary Divine Skill Doter's Charity to make items usable on everybody, you could turn Throné actually into a surprisingly powerful item support powerhouse. 2 turns in a row just gives you so many tactical options, and I used it to great effect in my run personally. Whether if it was just BP batterying somebody like Hikari to make him tear enemies to pieces, or just get that extra oomph you need to break an enemy's shields before they get a chance to go, this ability is really amazing, and I think alone puts Throné this high. We are already moving into the S tier, friends, and I gotta say, it was actually the S tier where I struggled the most to rank these characters, because I believe the 4 remaining characters are all outstandingly good. I gotta put them somewhere, but I wouldn't fight anybody if they told me that any character in this list was the best character in the game. But for me, coming in at 4th place and at the bottom of our S tier is Partitio. It's actually amazing how many wrong takes I've seen about Partitio online, because I do watch other tier lists as preparation for my tier list, and I've seen a couple people say the same thing. Oh, he's so good early. He can feed you JP early. It's like, Who the hell cares about it? Early JP, I had Hikari just one-shotting entire screens early. I don't need a JP boost. I can just power farm to my heart's content. That wasn't an issue. It's okay, okay? No, Partitio's strength comes online later, not earlier, guys. Okay, let's talk about it, okay? For starters, he, in the mid-game, gets his unique ability, Negotiate Schedule, which is just a bonkers strong ability. You pay an enemy, even a boss, money, and they just forfeit their turn, and Partitio gets to take a turn there instead. That ability alone, I think it gets Partitio into the S tier. It is absurdly good, but we are not done talking about his virtues. Donate BP is always an excellent support ability to have in the pocket to get your carries like Hikari doing more damage more consistently. Really good stuff. Partitio is, in my opinion, arguably the best Arcanist in the entire game, because just like Runelord Tressa, he is able to diffuse sidestep to make physical attacking enemies basically just miss your entire party. Really good stuff. His latent power is extraordinarily good. You push a button and Partitio's BP is full. Like, what's not to love about that? It's just all sorts of juice and firepower right when you need it. So it's aces all the way down. And again, why I think he's good in the late game more so than the early game is hired help. Just like in the first game, and I would say even much more so than the first game, hired help is such an absurd ability. It's like hired help is better than some other base classes just straight up. Like, it's better than the apothecary class. It's better than the thief. It's better than the dancer. Like, there's all sorts of party-wide buffs, and those are some of the cheaper options that you can get out of hired help. There's all sorts of shield breaking options and just devastating damage options. And yes, some of those other ones cost a lot more money, but in the late game, you should have enough money to fund it when you need it. And what you're left with is just a support, shield breaking, damage dealing powerhouse. If it didn't take so long to have the money and get some of those later hired help options to really come online, I really would consider putting Partitio higher. But in my opinion, as opposed to these other channels that think he's good early and weaker late, I think he really comes online late and is honestly, actually, I think he's weaker early. And for all those reasons, I landed here with Partitio. But if you thought he was better, I wouldn't argue it. Coming in third place for me, and this is a character who I think everybody does acknowledge is really good. I've seen her top some tier lists, and I get that. We're talking about Castii. And basically, everything I said about Alphen in the first video applies to Castii here. Because she's here for one reason, and we all know what that reason is. It's Concoct. Just like in the first game, Concoct is absurdly powerful and makes Castii arguably the best support unit in the entire game. She's able to heal the entire party, and she is by far the best party-wide BP battery in the game. And her latent power just lets you abuse it even a little bit more because it lets her concoct for free sometimes, which is just awesome. I would say just like in the Octopath 1 tier list, this ability really comes online much more strongly later in the game. I still think the Apothecary as a base class is a relatively weak class, but Concoct is just completely absurd with all sorts of buffing, healing, BP battery, and also debuffing and offensive options all in one ability. Just like Partitio's hired help, and even more so, it's just this single character ability that's better than other characters' entire kits. It's crazy. It's really good. And yeah, Castii is probably the best support in the game. Now, I know this is going to be a hot take. Fight me in the comments because I feel strongly about this. I can't believe how wrong every single tier list I've seen gets my canonically favorite character and my home dog detective Temenos wrong. Temenos is, in my opinion, the second best character in this game, and he's absurdly powerful, and I guess the entire community's just sleeping on it. So let's unpack it. For starters, just like in the first game, I think a lot of people forget that you have to get through the early and mid game to get to the end game, and in the early and mid game, the cleric is by far, without question, your best party support healer. And even in the late game, the cleric is always a good party healer. This alone is a talking point, but we're just getting started with Temenos. Because in addition to being an outstanding healer as a cleric, Temenos has a very, very good latent power that makes all of his attacks shred shields no matter what. Now, I'm not the first person in the community to notice that you pair Temenos with a scholar, and now you have a white mage and a black mage in one with a very naturally high elemental attack power, but you use that with the scholar's elemental barrage ability, and you will just melt a boss's shields with a multi-hit attack. It's really good, and quite damaging too, I should add. Opposite of Throné, if you fight at night with Temenos in your party, you're also going to start off with an enemy party-wide debuff, blinding them and lowering their physical and elemental attack. Passively for free. This is a really good talent. I would say that the Cleric Divine skill in this game isn't as good as it was in the first game, but it's still really good, offering your party in between turns. Nothing I'm gonna argue with, that's for sure. And if all of this was all Temenos had going for him, I would still say he's one of the best characters in the game. He is by far your best white and black mage through the mid-game. But he gets an ability specific to him that turns him into a nuclear bomb. And we are talking about Sacred Effulgence. This move is absurd. And remember how I talked about, well, Osvald, he could do some good damage if you go through the effort of setting him up. Well, you know what? If you're going to go through the effort of setting up a mage, why not set up a guy who's going to do 300,000 damage in a single cast and wipe anything, including the toughest super boss in this game, clean off the map? That is the firepower with a properly set up Temenos. I would know. I used it. It was bonkers. So you have an outstanding healer, an outstanding shield breaker, a guy who's passively debuffing enemies at the top of the fight, and he is also capable of doing the single highest one-turn damage in the game. Yeah, Temenos is an outstanding character, and every tier list who told you he's one of the weaker characters in the game is wrong, and that is an opinion I feel strongly about. So if you disagree, let's fight about it in the comments. I'm looking forward to it. Okay? And by elimination, the best character in this game overall, in my opinion, for 2 games in a row, and I swear that this isn't bias on my part, I guess I just got lucky, because this was also my blind pick starter. It was Hikari. And I'm certainly not the first person in the community to acknowledge Hikari's strength. His talent to learn skills from NPCs is just bonkers unfair. The way it is in practice is basically that Hikari gets access to a higher tier level of abilities than any other character in the game. Spells or physical abilities, for that matter. He just has access. Now, I think like many people, I went physical with Hikari, abusing particularly limb from limb as just an absurdly powerful physical attacker. But I gotta say, even in the early mid-game, I remember the first time I went to Ochette's village, there's a guy who's a little bit tough, but you can beat him with good prep, who will teach you twin spears. It's an area of effect 2-hit spear move that when I put that on Hikari with that one apothecary passive that gives you SP at the end of every battle, I had Hikari one-shotting every trash fight for, I don't know, 2/3 of the game with twin serpents. That's the power of these abilities that only Hikari has access to. And in this game, unlike the first game, I have to say the warrior is actually a pretty good job. He has a multi-hit sword attack, so he's always, no matter what you're doing with him, an amazing sword shield shredder. In addition, he has that counterattack move for one-on-one fights, which do occur, especially when you're with Hikari, that make him counterattack and always shred shields. He can buff defense and draw enemy attacks to him if needed. This is all nifty utility to have, and Hikari, more so than any other character in this game, has the bulk to take those hits. And I have to say, I don't think Hikari's latent power is as strong as many of the other characters who we've talked about here, but I do think it's pretty good. The one option that I used basically exclusively, I think it was called like Hienka or something like that, the one where he hits the enemy a single target twice, quite hard I should add, and then gets an extra turn in between the turns. Yeah, like in the right circumstance, this is just free chip damage, and then in that in-between turn, you can gas him up with his BP and unleash his devastating attack. It's really really pretty good. And yeah, I don't think I have much more to say about Hikari. I think he is consistently good the entire game. He is going to be one of, or probably the hardest hitting character in your party at all phases of the game, while being also the tankiest character in your party, just screen clearing trash mobs, melting shields, and doing devastating damage to your enemies. What's not to like? For me, I think when you add all that up and just how consistently good he is in the game, I think he comes out on top as, in my opinion, the strongest character in Octopath Traveler 2. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I always have a lot of fun making these tier lists. I really, like I said, wanted to celebrate the Octopath series this week. I love this series so much. I'm so excited for Octopath 0. I hope you found this list fun or helpful if you haven't had a chance to play Octopath 2 yet. If you haven't, I could not recommend this game strongly enough. It is, in my opinion, one of the best RPGs of all time. Probably at least top 20 for me. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Nick BRPG. Here I talk about all things RPG, with turn-based and JRPGs being my favorite. Thanks so much, and I'll catch you in the next one.